Alrighty, friends. So you're going to practice some writing with what you read. So that's what we call writing to the source or writing to the text. So when you read this, you had a lot of information about magnets. You learned a lot of things about magnets. Now, maybe you might have forgotten some stuff, and that's okay because you can reread it today as we're doing this. But so first, you're going to put your name on top. And then you're going to write. So like I said, as you're writing, you're more than welcome to look back to find your information about magnets. So if we want to start an informational writing, remember we can use the topic sentence, and make sure you do your 2-finger indent, I learned a lot about, and then what were we learning about again? Oh, that's right. It asks, what do we learn about magnets? So what you learned a lot about was magnets. So now you're going to be using this time to look back at the text and fill in the blanks. So I'm not going to fill in the blanks for you. That's going to be your job. So for example, we have to use a transition word first. So we could say, to start, comma, I learned, and then I want you to write one thing that you learned about magnets, because we learned a lot of stuff about magnets. There's a lot of information in this text. If you can't remember what you learned, you can go back and reread and fill in the blanks. So once you've figured out that, then you can go ahead and start your next sentence, because I'm going to say we're going to do about 3 sentences on this, or 4 sentences on this one. So that's one thing you learned about magnets. Now let's see. We could also say another fact I learned, because I want to know what you learned about magnets, was, and then you can write another fact you learned about magnets. And again, if you have to look back at the text, you're more than welcome to. So then you can do a third fact. We'll use lastly as our transition, comma, I learned. And then what was the last thing you learned about magnets? And again, if you need to look back at the text, you're more than welcome to. And then once you're done with this paper, you're going to be turning this into your group basket and moving on to the next part of the Nearpod. And you'll put your magnet story back in your purple folder.